Um, Welcome everybody to the session, Artificial Intelligence in the COVID-19 Era. If anything, COVID is a catalyst for all things digital, including artificial intelligence, chatbots, and whatnot. We believe that it's a very interesting session we'll be holding. The panelists are Alan Jerusalmi, co-founder and chief services officer at BioAI Health, who's a scientific expert with over 16 years of experience in pharma and technology platform companies, which is quite important because he actually bridges the transformational divide for implementation of market-oriented solutions between the technological and the pharmacological. So Alan will be kicking off our session. We also have Professor Sylvia Ilieva, who is director of the GATE Institute. That's the Institute for Big Data and Smart Society at Sofia Medical University. Professor Ilieva is a full professor of mathematics and informatics, and is a very result-driven academician with a passion for innovation. And last but not least is Rosen Dimitrov, who is a public affairs manager at Novartis Bulgaria. And more importantly, he's the vice chairperson of the digital healthcare cluster in Bulgaria. With a motto of his, which is, I'm unique just as everybody else. He's a very good social networker and solution seeker with a passion for everything digital, a speaker at national and international events related to digital health, entrepreneurship, and in the health sector. So we should have a really good session today. With that, I'd like to turn over to Alan. Alan, the floor is yours. Please share your slides, and we are looking forward to your talk.
Thank you very much. And I'm assuming everyone can see the screen. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate being given the opportunity to talk to you about BioAI Health and how we're leveraging AI and real-world evidence, big data to develop novel multi-omic AI diagnostics tests. So as a company, our mission is to use our proprietary AI platform to help our biopharma clients transform digital pathology image and genomic data into actionable insights. So thank you for the introduction. Again, my name is Alan Jerusalmi. I am in charge of services for the company, but I'm also in charge of all of our R&D at the moment. So as a company, we have roughly 20 people on staff, and that has a whole range of subject matter area experts, and that includes pathology, AI data scientists, bioinformatics, translational research, biostatistics, medical oncologists, as well as computer vision, and also regulatory consulting. So this is the rest of our leadership team, and we felt it was really important to establish a leadership company that included all areas that we operate in. So in that, the chairman of our board, Dr. Tom Chidnett, is an expert in AI, but we also have advisors covering all the way from anatomical pathology to software platform computing, biostatistician, and medical oncology, as well as a few other modalities. So as a company, our strategy is to integrate complex multi-omic data from clinical trials using our translational AI platform. And what we do is we build machine learning models on that pathology and genomic data so that we can help characterize the disease status in order to explore biomarker prevalence across tissue types and also to understand the mechanism of action. And we do that by using AI to determine the most informative pathology and genomic features in the clinical data, and then we can correlate that back to drug response, drug resistance, and overall survival. And before jumping into too much detail, just a quick reminder that why do we use deep learning, right? So deep learning falls in the realm of artificial intelligence, and it's a field where it's a type of machine learning based on neural networks where the machine can train itself, meaning we can teach the computer with rules and characteristics by examples. And the reason for using deep learning, it's very suited for medical data because medical data, it's an area where the data is always growing, and deep learning does exactly that. The more amount of data that it gets exposed to, the better your performance. So in terms of our platform and integration, we work with multiple data types, and that allows us to increase analysis and improve success for biomarker development. So we work at the intersection between pathology, genomic, and real-world evidence. And when we think of pathology, we're thinking about doing image analysis, looking at pathology factors, and genomics. You can look at gene expression, gene sequencing, but really, what is the relationship between them? How can we use pathology and genomics combined to further advance science? So from a capabilities perspective for the company, in digital pathology, we can ingest all types of images. Of course, H&E being probably the most common one. We have a pathologist and a pathology network that can help with all the annotations. And then from there, we can do all of our quantitative work. On the molecular side, again, we can take all of the raw files, RNA, NGS, we can take all of that. We have our own internal bioinformatics pipelines and workflows built, so we can establish what are the right genomic markers that we're looking at, it being MSI or TAB or HRD or others. And then we use machine learning either in a supervised or unsupervised format, which allows us to identify the pathology features that have a strong correlation to molecular signatures, and how does that relate to drug response, resistance, and overall survival. In terms of our architecture, it's a pretty straightforward. What do? We can ingest all of the data from our clients. It gets uploaded into our secure cloud environment where we have all of the computing needed to do the work. Once the data is available on the cloud, then our pathologists can annotate the data for supervised machine learning. Our bioinformaticians can go in there and develop all the pipelines that they need to develop. It all goes into our machine learning and AI team to build those models, and then it gets fed into the biostatistician to condense all of that mountain of data that we have down to the single one or two key features that are relevant to pharma, who then can receive the results from us. I'll spend the next few minutes talking about one of the apps that we have developed, which is the ability to have a molecular classifier for H&E images. So the idea here is taking a strictly genetic test, such as TMB, which is done via NGS, and say, can we find that signature looking at an H&E image only? And in order to do that, there were three things that we had to do. The first one was develop the necessary pipelines and workflows on the bioinformatics side to determine what are the high TMB and low TMB samples. And we did that using the TCGA cohort for non-small cell lung carcinoma using 200 samples. So once we had the right determination of high and low from a bioinformatics side or molecular side, now we can jump into the pathology. So taking those same 200 samples, we had our pathologists annotate those for subgross tumor regions, and hopefully you can see on the image the outline around the tumor region on that image. And then from there, that region can get tiled, and we had to figure out what is the optimal tile size for us to develop the models on. And then we can develop a classifier that will look at those H&E images and determine, is this a high or a low? And then on top of that, we also went back to the pathology data and we did finer annotations so that we can do a further segmentation to subdivide that tumor region into the different compartments, looking at tumor epithelium, tumor stroma, immune infiltrates, and necrosis areas. And then on the machine learning, again, we developed the two models, but two things that I want to highlight. One is that we use our Bio Deep Learning Atlas, which is a novel stacking method. So we're not relying on a single architecture here. We're combining a number of different deep learning architectures, which are giving us a much better performance. And then we also introduced a deep learning visualizer, which is a concept of looking into the black box, right? We need to be able to understand how that algorithm is performing so that we can not only understand the performance, but we can do a quick QC on the results, but we can also guide that for model optimization. So when we take a step back and look at the two models developed, the top model is our classifier, which we can take the image, have the annotations done, and then from there we produce a heat map with all the probability status of a high or low for the molecular marker. And then from that heat map, we can determine, is this case a TMB high or is this case a TMB low? And then at the bottom, we're looking at the second model that we developed, which is the segmentation model, where we can take that same tumor and subdivide it into the different compartments. And this is important because now that we have both models developed, we can combine the two and use one to feed into the other. So if we want to go back and further tweak our classifier model and exclude specific areas of the tissue that are not relevant, we can do that. On this case, because we know TMB is expressed strictly on tumor cells, we can go back and start eliminating some of the areas of the tumor that are non-relevant. So when we look at the results of the classifier and some of the metrics that we used, so we trained the data on 200 samples, so 200 images, which relates to roughly 750 total tiles. And on the right, you can see where the results are. So we're getting ranges between 70 and 80%, which is in line with all of the publications out there that attempt to do this type of work. But again, there are strategies that we can employ once we increase the data set from 200 to 400 to 1,000 to go much higher than the 90%. And the top right is looking at the test results alone, and the image on the graph on the bottom left here is looking at the results of our cross-validation studies. The second set of work we did was on the supervised machine learning, where here, as opposed to taking the entire subgross tumor as an input, we took very small patches. In this case, roughly 3,000 patches were used, and then we can use machine learning to build our segmentation and subdivide the tissue into the different compartments. And you can see the image on the right where we have the different colors representing what was detected between tumor, stroma, necrosis, and immune cells. We then took those results, we sat side by side with the pathologist to make sure that they were happy with the results, and overall the results were pretty good, and you can see the accuracy levels here that were achieved. And again, those are on the 80%. The balanced accuracy goes a little bit lower than the tile level accuracy, only because it takes into account all of the classes, and because other included all non-tumor region, it drives it down a little bit. But when we sat down with a lot more than these 3 images side by side with the pathologist, we were pretty happy with the results, so that we know now we have our next steps done in the model. So in summary, we believe that we have a platform and capabilities that are very well aligned with biopharma translational medicine programs, clinical trial assays, and companion diagnostics programs. We offer a very unique quality control tool that enables our team to have a rapid QC on how those black box algorithms are performing. We're confident that we can increase the performance of our prototype application in order to use it for further clinical studies and eventually as a diagnostic assay in the clinic. We have machine learning models that can also be expanded into additional indications. We showed you one model here. However, that can be expanded into a number of additional models that can help predict patient response to therapy, drug resistance, and mode of action. And our team of experts has a proven track record in developing a lot of strategic partnerships with pharma and solving major challenges in R&D. And with that, I would like to thank everyone for your time. Happy to take any questions.
Fantastic. Are you aware of any competition, significant competition in this space?
So yeah, there's a lot of companies that do similar work, but I would say the main companies in the area are really focusing either on the pathology side or the genomic side. I think looking at the area where the two intersect and trying to find that sweet spot between them is one of the unique things that we offer.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't see any questions in the chat box. So I will go on to Professor Ilieva. Professor Ilieva, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. I need to be able to share the screen. Yeah, no, I can share. Okay, it's my pleasure to speak in this event. It's my first participation, and the Gate Institute, which was just created a year ago, and I'm director of this institute. And so this is the first big data center of excellence in Eastern Europe created with the investment from Horizon 2020, European Commission. And it was quite a tough competition to establish such institute in Bulgaria. And GATE is one of these selected 14 project proposals out of almost 300 from 15 countries in Europe to establish such center. And we are the first in Eastern Europe, because in Western Europe there are almost 50 such centers, but it's challenging for us to create this in Bulgaria. And our partners are Chalmers University of Technology, which is in Gothenburg in Sweden, leading in artificial intelligence, and Chalmers Industry Technique, which is additional legal body in Chalmers University of Technology, responsible for commercialization of research results. So our institute, which is in the Sofia University, should be something in between, should commercialize our research results and also contribute to the research in this field. So here is our concept as an institute. So GATE comes from Big Data for Smart Society, and we'll work in the whole big data value chain, starting from data management, data analytics, data insight, and engineering of big data systems. And we'll do this applied research in different domains, so future cities, intelligent government, smart industry, and digital health. So digital health is which is related to the biotech atelier, and we already started work in the first projects on Alzheimer's disease diagnosis and therapy. And tomorrow we are having separate workshop where we will present the current results of our work. And also, in addition to the research which we will do, we are supposed to educate and train people on big data and artificial intelligence through knowledge transfer to create excellent researchers to be able to provide such research results. And in addition to this, after this investment of European Union, we should be sustainable in the future. So we will produce different intellectual assets, methods, algorithms, tools, whatever, and we hope to commercialize those products in the future through different business models, work with the ecosystem, with different companies and other research organizations. So in the center of this is the infrastructure, which we will provide, the big data platform, where we will collect different data, and also we will be GATE data factory. We will distribute knowledge to ecosystem and to different stakeholders. So speaking about artificial intelligence, so in this current era of business process transformation, artificial intelligence systems are not, how say, replacing us, but rather they're amplifying our skills and collaborating with us to achieve productivity gains that have previously not been possible. So humans work with smart machines to exploit each party does what this party does best. And humans, for example, they need to develop, to train, to manage various AI applications. And in doing so, they are enabling those systems to function as true collaborative partners. For their part, machines are helping people and providing them with superhuman capabilities, such as the ability to process and analyze a large amount of data from myriad sources, sometimes in real time. So machines are augmenting human capability. So together, humans and machines, they're symbiotic partners, and each pushing the other to higher level of performance. And what can AI alleviate the COVID-19 crisis, which is the topic of our session? So one listed some of the ways which. So first, AI-based patient screening tools like chatbot, which was mentioned in previous sessions, where people with symptoms can talk with chatbots, and depending on these, they will be directed to humans, or if there is no need, it will save time and effort of people. and also some different screening tools like this, which will be presented in the next session from Kelvin Company, which is following your temperature and then make conclusions about your status. So there are different such tools which are based on AI technologies. In addition, you may use AI for AI-based drug and vaccine discovery and repurposing. So the trend was before the COVID, but now it's even more important that it speeds up the process of drug discovery and significantly reduces the costs. And repurposing is useful as side effects of already used drugs are supposed to be already known in most cases. And artificial intelligence-based tool that may predict drugs directly from the sequences of infected patients, and thereby they might contribute towards vaccine design against COVID-19. The other aspects are robots, which are providing healthcare services to COVID patients, which is important because healthcare authorities are forced to use technology to fight with this pandemic, delivering fast and safe treatment. So rather than healthcare staff, which are providing services to patients which are infected with the coronavirus, like delivering food, delivering medicines, or disinfecting rooms, AI-enabled robots are adopted to offer such services in some hospital, and that's happened in China, for example. So this adoption of robots reduces the pressure on nurses and reduces the chance to cross infection and saves lives. The other thing is about clinical trials, which companies that conduct clinical trials, they are facing problems of a large number of participants which need for trials. And these synthetic control arms, they represent a way to save time and money and to safely leap forward into real-world evidence. So those synthetic control arms, they're working like this. Instead of collecting data from patients which recruited for trial who have been assigned to the control or standard of care arm, synthetic control arms model, those people using real-world data that has previously been collected from different sources, like health data generated during routine care, including electronic health records, or administrative claims data, or disease registers, or historical clinical trial data. So the benefits of this the benefits are for the pharmaceutical industry, and they're clear. By reducing or eliminating the need to enroll control patients, this synthetic control arm can increase efficiency, can reduce delays, and lower the trial cost and speed these life-saving therapies to the market. So this kind of hybrid trial design presents less risky way for sponsors to introduce real-world data elements into the regulatory trials, and can also reduce the risks of late-stage failures by better informing go or no-go development decisions. And finally, there was a special session in the morning about the real-world evidence, and the problems there were discussed. But here I'd like to speak about the relation with the coronavirus disease, which rapidly affected people mortality. And so there is such urgency to understand who is the most at risk to such severe outcomes. And this to reduce this requires new approaches to the timely analysis of large data sets. And for example, in UK, they created such a secure health analytics platform, which covers 40% patients in England using this primary care electronic health records. And in UK, they use this platform to examine factors which are associated with the COVID-19 related death. So primary care records of 17 million adults were anonymously linked to the 11,000 COVID-related deaths, and this COVID-related deaths was associated with being male, greater age, diabetes, severe asthma, and various other medical conditions. And compared with people for white ethnicity, Black and South Asian people were at higher risk. So different factors were had in mind. And having in mind that we're having these EU health data spaces, we may apply similar approach to bigger data and get better results. And also the different studies, for example, in Italy, in Netherlands, which relates the air quality and COVID, and also other non-clinical data with this. So the possibilities for using AI are everywhere, we may say, and our role as an institute is to prepare to educate people, both professionals, and also to increase data culture and people to also we're working on this explainable AI to be aware what are the values and the benefits of applying AI in our life. So that's my contribution. I could take any questions.
Thank you very much. The first question that pops to mind from the Gate Institute point of view, within big data, there are the 4 dimensions of big data: volume, veracity, velocity, and variety. Which is the biggest challenge between the 4?
In fact, in the literature, there are even now 10 different dimensions of data. So currently, I think variety or interoperability and variety of data is maybe the biggest challenge for us. But for health data, definitely the security, anonymization of data is something, trust on the data, it's something. The quality is also important. So there are a lot of many important dimensions of data which we need to deal with.
Okay. Thank you. We will be discussing this afterwards because there are a lot of very, very interesting things happening both around COVID and with big data and in general with digital health in Bulgaria. And I'm very glad to give the floor to Rosen Dimitrov, who is the Vice Chair of the Digital Healthcare Cluster. Rosen, you're up.
Thanks, Alex. Talking about artificial intelligence in COVID-19 crisis, I will draw your attention not to all these clinical aspects, because Sylvia very well mentioned all the different levels, but I will draw your attention to the infodemic, to this overabundance of information that we have, and this rapid spread of misleading information and different conspiracy theories. But before that, I would like to start with a document that was shared by the European Parliament. It was in April 2020. It was called 10 Technologies to Fight Coronavirus. And the first technology was artificial intelligence. And in fact, all the things that Sylvia mentioned in her presentation were there, but there was also this infodemic. And why is it important? Because now we know more about COVID-19, and now this crisis is turning into a public health crisis. And a couple of surveys were published these days. I will share with you just a couple of numbers from the United States. In March, 28% of the people in this study, it was published in Time a couple of days ago, 28% of people believe that COVID, in fact, is a bioweapon produced by the Chinese people, by China. In July, the number of believers rose to 37%. Another another percentage, very interesting. About 24% believed that the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention exaggerated the virus danger to hurt Trump politically, despite a lack of evidence. By July, this figure rose to 32%. And why is this important? Again, it's part of this study. You know, only 62% of people who were most likely to believe the coronavirus conspiracies said that they wear a mask every day. And compared to 95% of non-believers. So we see that all these misinformation and conspiracy theories lead to activities of the people that in fact ruin all the strategies in this public health crisis. And these theories and misinformation, they spread very easily because these are like easy solutions for the people because they are quite catchy and because they flourish very easily in this period of uncertainty. So another very interesting article was published by the World Health Organization because they are looking very closely over these processes. And in fact, they started talking about how to immunize the public against this information. And it's very interesting that World Health Organization, in fact, they started working with artificial intelligence. And they started social media listening. And it's very important how they changed their strategy from sentiment while doing this social media listening to looking at the emotion of the people, change their attitude from information, good or bad, to looking closely at the narrative, at the nuances of the narrative, change from volume to the velocity, because in this way they look at how at the reach and the relative speed of this misinformation, and instead of looking at what is wrong and what is right, they look at how to share correct information from trusted sources. And instead of sharers, they start looking at seekers. And they identified citizens' questions, which turned out to be more valuable for them. And they said something very interesting, prevention is better than cure. So they start looking how to vaccinate people with good information. And they said we have to vaccinate 30% of the population with this good information. And being a public affairs person and working together with different digital health companies with our cluster organization, I was very interested in this part of the World Health Organization, that in order to deliver quality AI solutions in this public health crisis, we have to work in close collaboration with the communities. In our morning session, we talked a lot how to have this quality AI working with different stakeholders, having everyone on board. And now they think they work much closely with different communities because they are amplifying this information in order to fight misinformation and conspiracy theories, and in order to produce more credible sources, because credible sources is the base for the proper communication in this difficult situation. WHO, they work with 50 different digital companies and social media platforms. They work with with Google, with Facebook. They work even with TikTok and Tinder. So this was from my side in order to bring these different aspects of our discussion, because I find it really interesting. And being very active in this crisis, I mean, the digital health companies in Bulgaria, we were not active in this part with in this public health crisis, working with the communities and having the AI in this conspiracy theories and misinformation field.
Thank you very much. From the digital cluster perspective, what do you think is the biggest challenge that that COVID faced from a digital perspective in the country?
Again, I will speak like a public affairs person.
Okay.
We have in the cluster different companies bringing different digital health solutions, some of them having the AI above. And it was very interesting that some of the companies were very willing to work together with health authorities in order to bring this as fast as possible to the patient and to the society. And again, it was very difficult, and I think we didn't succeed much into this. Some of the companies worked with big hospitals. Some of the companies work with smaller hospitals, with some communities. But as a cluster organization, we didn't succeed to bring this to the authorities and to have it on national level. So this was the biggest challenge for me. We were not able to work as one community in this situation, in this public health crisis.
I'll start off the panel discussion between ourselves with a favorite quote of mine, which is artificial intelligence is no match for natural stupidity. But from a previous session we had, I was very much struck by a question, a very insightful question Dr. Paul Epping made this morning. He said, is the future possible without AI? Can you each give a perspective on, is the future possible without AI? Alan?
Yeah, I think everything is possible, but I think it will be foolish not to utilize AI since it is available for everybody, right? It's a tool that we have today. So the question is not, do we use it or not use it? It's really how to best leverage it and use it the proper way. So if you're using it in medicine and pathology, whichever domain you're using, you have to make sure that you're using properly. Meaning on the pathologist side, use AI to help support pathologists, give them more data, but it's still crucial that they're feeding the information that goes into the AI, so you're not training anything improper. So that's how I see it.
Okay. Professor Ilieva?
Yeah, I agree with Aaron, but something what I think is that artificial intelligence in any way happens, so we cannot stop it. So it's not a question to live with or without it. We have no choice in a sense. So it's similar to industrial revolution, which information society, which shifting the human work from our muscles to our heads. So now artificial intelligence is the next step is shifting the human work from heads to our hearts. So now a lot of things artificial intelligence will do instead of us. So we'll analyze information, will support our decision making, and will support all our activities. And now we should have more time to communicate with each other and to do things with our heart, not only with heads. So it's go deeper in what we have inside us and what we are as humans. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for this very insightful visualization, because I believe I will use it in my future talks between the muscle, the head, and the heart. What about you?
A comment from my side. AI, it should be patient-centered, it should be people-centered, and it should be also public-centered. Talking about, again, COVID-19 and future public health crisis. And something else, what is also important, it should be focused on the outcome. So in healthcare, we have three very important aspects. We need first access, then we need quality, access to quality healthcare, but bringing at the end certain outcome. So the outcome of all these efforts in terms of artificial intelligence should be clearly stated from the very beginning, and it should be for sure people and patient-centric.
Okay. Now, one more thing which you spurred in my mind as a question: why are currently the benefits from AI and digital health mainly for the industry and less so for society and the populations? Because most of what we have in the implementation, including Alan's company and the work Professor Ilieva is doing, they're mainly focused on the pharma industry or the biotech industry. That's where the brunt of the activity is. And yet, a lot of what we need to achieve is behavioral change, social listening, the vaccination you were talking about of the population, the psychological vaccination, basically. So why do you think this is so? Why is the key benefit currently for the industry and not for the populations applied?
I think it takes time, right, for certain things to reach the public. I think industry on this case has an edge because they are trying to develop drugs which eventually will get to the population, right? And it costs billions of dollars to develop or design these drugs. So if you can use AI to shorten that cycle and make it cheaper for them, then they'll be foolish not to take it. So it's very well suited. When you think about something that has to go into the public, now you're talking about a lot more regulatory things that have to cover. You have the FDA or other regulatory agencies that want to ensure that it's fully safe. And I think it's just, it takes time to get there. They don't have the flexibility of trial and error that pharma have. In the end, it's costing them money, but it's only money, right? If you release something to the public a little too early, then you're playing with people's lives. So you have to be a little more careful and ensure that all the layers of security are there. I think we'll get there, but I do think that everything that goes to the public, it just takes a little bit longer. Strictly from a medicine point of view, of course, there's other areas of AI that can get there quicker, that don't directly affect someone's health on a day-to-day basis. But from a medicine and medical perspective, I just think it will take a little bit of time. And also to get everyone used to it, right? It's a new concept for a lot of people to be talking with a computer instead of a real doctor in front of you. So that transition also takes time. And I think generation will help also. You have younger people are probably a lot more apt to go to a computer to get something as opposed to someone that's been going to a doctor's office for many years. So I think that would also help in that transition.
Okay. Professor Ilieva?
Yeah, maybe one of the reasons is that those companies, they're having more data. And having more data, they're advancing also in technologies and artificial intelligence. And people are a bit afraid of sharing their own personal data or going like this. But I think it's similar like internet, which we are using like other facilities. So we'll use artificial intelligence in the future. Just really it takes time to change our mind and ready to use all the benefits of artificial intelligence. But definitely we need to do a lot of work in educate people on the value.
Yeah, currently the Gate Institute what proportion of the work done by the Gate Institute is healthcare versus the other activities in other parts of smart society?
Yeah, we started with Future Cities, which is very connected with the society. So to contribute to the people living in the cities and to make their life better. So that's the first maybe 60% of our work, and then is digital health. And as I mentioned, tomorrow we will see the first results together, which we're working with Chalmers University of Technology. We have partners from United States, from Stanford, Yale, and Texas, other parts of the world where we start working. And next will be government, and finally industry.
Okay.
But currently, that's the situation. We are growing slowly. So we are currently 25 people.
Rosen, what about you? You've been on the receiving end, both actually at the end of doing it and at the end of purchasing activities like this.
Yeah, we are everywhere. I think things happen a little bit slowly because this is the bottom-up approach. We discussed this in the morning session. Many interesting things happen now with smaller companies, bigger companies, startups, but this is the bottom-up approach. And if we want everything to be on a bigger scale, of course, top-down support could be very important. But even this is not the solution of this problem. And it was quite well said 2 years ago here in Bulgaria during the digital forum that was during our presidency, that governments by the European Commission, and I'm very often quoting this, governments now and institutions, they're not able to solve all these issues because the only way these issues could be solved is by having on board private organizations and private entrepreneurs. And that's why I'm here in this panel, and I was in the morning, because we are trying to build this ecosystem in order to have this sustainable and effective healthcare ecosystem of private entrepreneurs, of private organizations who are that are very flexible in this situation, bringing solutions to the market, solutions that are important for the society and for the patients. And that's where we see the results. These smaller companies, they're very flexible and they're incredible. And I saw that Kelvin is in the session just after this. So this is just a small example, and we have many, many others now. So this is the issue for me and the solution.
Hopefully, I don't think we'll have a lot of time to go into this, but it's very interesting to think of AI and private and public and cooperation versus competition, because a lot of what we have in our society currently is based on competition, but actually within this fledgling upcoming parts of the technology, we need much more cooperation than we need competition. Thank you very much. And I believe
Alex, just to add something to your thoughts here, it's really very, very important. And we saw it with our cluster organization, because, each company is bringing value to the ecosystem. And what is important afterwards, there is more and more value for the participants and more business for them. So this is moving from competition to collaboration in this area. There is business for everyone, a lot of business.
Yeah. With the starting market, which is basically a blue ocean strategy at the moment, it is exactly that. Hopefully, many more people will see it that way and start collaborating and cooperating. I'd like to thank you all. It was very interesting for me personally. It was very interesting listening to your talks. They gave me very new and very fresh perspectives. Thank you a lot. And if you have any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audiences with, the floor is yours for a final sentence.
No, I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity to speak. It was a pleasure meeting with you, and happy to talk to anyone about BioAI and work with you.
Okay.
Okay, from my side also, I would like to thank you for participating in this session, and hope we will collaborate in the future in some or another way. We already did this with Rosen, and we have some thoughts and suggestions, ideas for further development. So I think we'll meet again and work together.
My final words, I will try to show it here. Moving from IQ to WeQ, from competition to collaboration.
Fantastic. Thank you for this eloquent and elegant ending. With this, I'm closing the panel. Thank you very much.